Have you ever asked yourself, growing old alone, is it a tragedy or an unopened gift? When there's only one light turned on in the house, and the laughter is replaced by long silences, people often think of loneliness, emptiness. But is that the whole truth? Or could it be that behind the quiet lies a deeper world where life begins to reveal itself in the stillness? What if you could learn to love yourself without needing anyone else beside you? Maybe you've always thought living alone means lacking something. No one to share with, no one to take care of you. But from the lens of Zen and Buddhism, it is precisely in those moments of solitude that we finally meet the most important companion of our lives, our own mind. And from there, every cup of tea, every step in the hallway becomes a form of meditation, a way of living in peace. How can an elderly person living alone leave behind a legacy without saying a word? It's not about wealth. It's not about achievements. It's about presence. A soft gaze, a calm step, a gentle smile like a passing breeze. That kind of legacy doesn't need to be preached. It radiates through how they live, how they accept life, how they love, even in solitude. And as we begin to look at life through the lens of mindfulness, we may come to see that living alone isn't about being empty. It's a journey inward, a journey filled with quiet moments, but also with light. So come with me on this gentle exploration, where growing old alone isn't a symbol of sadness, but a lantern, illuminating not just your path, but the world around you. 1. Turning daily routines into sacred rituals. Have you ever noticed that the smallest things you do each day, like making tea, washing a dish, or folding your blanket in the morning, can become some of the most sacred moments of your life? I once sat with a 78-year-old woman who had lived alone for nearly 20 years since her husband passed. She told me that in the early mornings, when the sunlight just begins to touch the window, she makes herself a cup of tea. No one joins her. No one sits across from her. But she said, "Teacher, I feel like I'm sitting with myself, not lonely, but peaceful." Can you imagine that? No rush, no noise, just you, your breath, and the sound of water gently pouring into a cup. In Buddhism, there's a beautiful word, mindfulness. It means being fully present in the moment, not wandering off to the past, not worrying about the future. Just washing your hands, your dishes, sweeping the floor, but doing it with your whole heart. In that way, every act becomes a meditation, a ritual. Younger folks often get swept up in the hustle deadlines, meetings, relationships. But older adults, like many of the practitioners I know, hold a rare gift, time. Sadly, not everyone knows how to use that time to nourish the soul. Have you ever felt like your days alone are just passing by, repeating, dull or meaningless? If so, I invite you to try something. Pick one thing you do every day: making tea, walking in the yard, folding laundry, and do it as if it were the first time, as if you were caring for someone you love. And that someone is you. The Buddha once said, "Mindfulness is the path to peace." And I believe, right there in your kitchen or by your window seat, you can begin that journey. No need to wait. No need to do something grand. Because often, it's the smallest things that become the safest home for a soul journeying through the depth of life. 2. Rediscovering the joy of simple things. There's a kind of joy we often forget, the joy that is beautifully simple. The joy of opening your window in the morning and hearing birds sing. The joy of a cool breeze on your cheek. The joy of sunlight landing on a leaf by the porch. Just sitting down, doing nothing at all, and feeling your heart soften. I remember a man in his 70s once shared with me after a spring retreat. He said, "I used to think growing old was just about waiting for the kids to visit, waiting for dinner, waiting for time to pass. But now, just sitting quietly, watching the flowers in the yard, that's enough. Can you picture that? No phone ringing, no meetings, no rush, just you and this very moment. And in that moment, every sound, every beam of light, every breath becomes incredibly alive. In Buddhist teachings, there's a beautiful phrase, living with a non-judging mind. It means seeing things exactly as they are, not comparing, not wishing they were different. When we do that, even a falling leaf can make us smile. A raindrop tapping on the roof becomes a silent symphony of peace. I often remind older practitioners, aging isn't the end. It's a chance to slow down, to see the world with fresh eyes, like a child seeing life for the first time. The Buddha called it beginner's mind, a heart that isn't jaded or bored, but always curious, surprised, and grateful. You can start with something small, a tree, a sunset, a quiet smile in the mirror. None of these things are ever ordinary, if you're truly present enough to notice them. So if one day you feel a little empty, try stepping out to your porch, sit for a few minutes, and just listen to how life is whispering to you, softly, but full of love. Joy isn't far. It lives in the simplest moments we often overlook, and all you have to do is turn around and notice it. 3. Learning to listen to yourself. Have you ever wondered, what's the voice you hear the most in your entire life? It's not your spouse, your children, or your friends. It's the voice inside your head. That inner voice that's constantly whispering, reacting, doubting, worrying, hoping, from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep. But here's the thing, even though we hear it all day, most of us never really listen. I remember an older Buddhist practitioner once told me during a morning meditation session, "Dear teacher, it wasn't until I retired that I realized, all these years, I never once asked myself, how do I really feel? What do I truly need? What am I afraid of?" And then, in the silence, she wept not from present pain, but for all the years she had ignored her own heart. We spend so much of our lives living for others, but sometimes we forget the one companion who's always with us, ourselves. The Buddha said that within each of us is an inner sanctuary, a place of deep peace, where the mind quiets and wisdom begins to arise. But to enter that space, we must relearn a seemingly simple skill, listening, not listening to respond, but listening to understand. Next time you're alone, instead of turning on the television or reaching for your phone, try this. Close your eyes and gently ask, how is my heart doing today? What comes up? Worry? Peace? An old memory? Just let it arise, like clouds passing across the sky. Don't push it away. Don't cling. That's the practice of sati mindfulness. And listening to yourself with compassion is the first step toward healing. And something magical happens when you do this with gentleness. The heart responds not with words, but with a soft sense of relief, of peace, of inner knowing. Imagine if each morning you gave yourself just 5 minutes to truly check in. Could that change how the rest of your day feels? People say aging is a time to rest, but I believe it's also the perfect time to come home to finally learn how to love yourself again. And in that silence, you may discover the most loyal friend you've ever had, your own heart, patiently waiting for you to return. 4. Redefining the purpose of life. Have you ever sat by the window one afternoon and asked yourself, what am I living for now? When the job is done? When the kids are grown? When all the roles you once held as a parent, a partner, a provider slowly fade from the stage of life? What's left? I've met so many older Buddhists in their 60s and 70s who face this same void. One man once told me, "Teacher, I just feel like I don't matter to anyone anymore." I understood him. Society often ties our worth to what we do for others. But in Buddhism, purpose comes from a different place. The Buddha taught, the deepest meaning of life isn't outside of us, it's in the quality of our mind. It's not about what you do, it's about how you live. Even the smallest act, done with compassion and awareness, becomes the action of a bodhisattva. Imagine this, an elder living alone. They make tea in the morning, water the plants, take a quiet walk, no noise, no spotlight. But if they do it all with love and presence, their life becomes a living, teaching a silent Dharma talk. I remember a woman in California who fell into depression after losing her husband. But one day, she began painting. Not to sell, not to impress, just to express. She told me, "Teacher, every brushstroke feels like I'm coming back to life." And then she said something beautiful. These days, I wake up with a reason to live, not for anyone else, but for myself. Have you ever felt that way? That purpose isn't found in grand accomplishments, but in how you care for your heart each day. At this stage of life, you don't need to chase achievements anymore. What you do need is to gently turn inward and ask, can I live today with gratitude, with stillness, with one small act of kindness? If the answer is yes, then you are already living a life of deep meaning. You don't need applause. You just need to know, deep inside, I am living with mindfulness and love. And that is more than enough. 5. Becoming a symbol of wisdom and peace. Have you ever thought that even at this age, you can still be an inspiration not through words, but through your peaceful presence? I once visited an elderly man living alone in a small home in Oregon. He didn't have much, no family left, no wealth to speak of. And yet, everyone who came to see him walked away feeling lighter, more at ease. Not because he preached any profound teachings, but because of how he lived slowly, humbly, without complaints or bitterness. Just a soft smile, a gentle look, a sincere, "How are you?" And it touched something deep in people's hearts, like a quiet stream flowing through the weariness of the world. Just imagine, maybe we're no longer the ones who do a lot, but in our quiet presence, we can still be a safe harbor for others. The Buddha once said, "The wise do not need many words. Their every action reflects their insight." I truly believe that those who've lived through life's ups and downs, who've tasted both joy and sorrow, carry a quiet light, not flashy, but warm, not loud. But somehow, people want to sit near them just to feel their calm. Have you ever felt that? Just sitting next to someone steady and kind makes you feel calmer inside? At this age, there's nothing left to prove. What you offer now is the distilled wisdom of your life, the patience that can't be rushed, the compassion that expects nothing in return. A simple nod, slow, thoughtful, that younger folks might not fully understand, but deeply feel. If you live each day with sincerity, a forgiving heart, and a mind no longer caught in conflict, you become a lamp, not a spotlight, just a steady light. And that light, it may speak louder than any words, because your silent presence, your peaceful way of being, is a gift to the world. 6. Nurturing gratitude every day. Have you ever sat still, watched a beam of sunlight pass through the window, and felt your heart soften? I ask because sometimes it's the smallest things, truly the smallest, that open the door to peace, if we're slow enough to notice. Like the song of a bird at sunrise, the warmth in your hands holding a cup of tea, or simply the breath that still moves through you this morning. Many older Buddhists I've walked with have asked me, "Teacher, What can I do each day to keep my heart at peace when my health isn't what it used to be and no one's around anymore? I always offer one simple practice: conscious gratitude. Just imagine this. Instead of rushing to turn on the television or check your phone, you sit quietly for a few minutes each morning. Close your eyes and think of 3 things you still have. Maybe it's your legs that still take you out to the garden. Maybe it's a roof that shelters you. Or maybe it's just the simple fact that you woke up today. The Buddha said, "A grateful heart is the foundation of true happiness." Why is that? Because when we feel grateful, our mind stops chasing what's missing and begins to see what's already here. I once met an elderly woman in Florida, living alone for nearly a decade after her husband passed. Every day, she would write 3 things she was grateful for in a little notebook. She told me, "Some days it feels like there's nothing good at all, but when I sit down and look, there's always something. Like today, no one made me cry. And for that, I'm grateful." Have you ever felt that too? That just by shifting how we see, an ordinary day can feel like a gift? Growing older is a chance to return to life's most essential things, and gratitude is a powerful spiritual path. You don't need temples or rituals, just your presence and softer eyes to truly see the life you still have. Because sometimes, happiness doesn't come from something new, but from noticing what's been here all along with a renewed heart, a heart full of gratitude. 7. Minimalism brings true freedom. Have you ever opened your closet, looked at everything inside, and sighed thinking, "Why do I have so much when I only use so little?" Or sat quietly in your home, yet still felt a heaviness in your heart, not from noise, but from too many things around you: objects, memories, old emotions? I've heard this from many older Buddhists. I've guided that at some point in life we stop wanting more and begin longing for less. Less clutter, less noise, less of the invisible burdens we've carried for decades without even noticing. One woman in her 60s once told me, after her kids moved out, she began clearing out her home, but this time she approached it differently. She asked herself, "Does this still bring me joy? Do I truly need this anymore?" What remained was just a fraction of what she had, but her heart felt lighter. Imagine walking into your room and everything around you is simple, calm, meaningful. Nothing overwhelming. Nothing kept out of guilt or attachment to the past. Only what brings peace. The Buddha taught that much of our suffering comes from upadana grasping, not because we have little, but because we don't know how to let go. Minimalism, when understood deeply, isn't just about owning fewer things. It's a path of awareness, a conscious choice to keep only what truly matters, not out of habit, not because society says so, but because you know what feeds your peace and what weighs you down. I often tell older students, this season of life is a sacred time to purify not just your home, but your heart. And each item you let go of, it's not a loss. It's space being made for freedom to enter. And sometimes, just by sitting in a quiet, uncluttered room, you can finally hear the voice of your own soul. Because in simplicity, freedom begins. And you, my friend, hold the key. 8. Invisible connection to the world. Many people think that living alone means being cut off from family, from society, from the world. But what if I told you that in silence, you can feel more connected than ever? I once led a retreat for elderly practitioners, most of whom lived alone. After a few days of deep meditation, one woman came up to me, teary-eyed, and said, "Teacher, I always thought I was alone. But today, when I sat in silence, I felt something I've never felt before, like I was being held by the entire universe. Have you ever felt that? That something unseen is right there with you, not something you can name or touch, but something very real, very warm? In Buddhism, we call this inner being. Nothing exists independently. Everything is connected. The Buddha taught, this is because that is. So even if you live in a quiet home by yourself, you are still woven into the fabric of life, from the grain of rice in your bowl to the breath in your lungs. Each moment is made possible by countless people, places, and conditions. Imagine this. When you sit down for tea, it's not just you. It's the rain that watered the leaves, the farmer who picked them, the hands that dried and packed the tea. In every moment, you are held in countless invisible threads. And when loneliness creeps in, try sitting still. Hand over your heart. Feel your heartbeat. That rhythm, it's not just yours. It's the echo of generations before you. Of love, of sacrifice, of lives you've touched, and lives that shaped you, even the ones you've never met. You see, real connection doesn't need words. It doesn't need a phone screen. It only needs an open heart and the willingness to truly feel. Because sometimes, in the stillness, that's when the deepest connections arise. And when they do, you'll realize something powerful. You were never alone, not for a single breath. 9. The inner strength discovered through self-care. Have you ever thought that simply waking up early, cooking yourself a proper breakfast, and washing the dishes afterward could be a sacred act of nourishing the soul? I've met many elderly Buddhists living alone after their children moved out or after their life partner passed away. Some of them told me, at this age, I don't need to try anymore. I just get by. That's enough. But one day during a meditation session, I gently asked, have you ever considered that truly taking care of yourself is how you show respect to this very life? After that session, a 68-year-old man came up to me. He said he started cleaning his kitchen again, cooking mindfully every day, even though he lived alone. He looked at me and said, I've realized I don't need anyone else to treat me well. Every time I fold my clothes, clean my table, or cook a meal, I'm telling myself, you are worthy of care. Have you ever felt something like that? That taking care of yourself isn't about being lonely, but about realizing you hold a deep strength inside called inner power. The Buddha once said, be a lamp unto yourself. No one can meditate for you. No one can live your life for you. No one can love you if you refuse to love yourself. When you slowly fold your blanket in the morning, or make a warm pot of tea with full presence, you're feeding something very deep inside your awareness, your dignity, your gratitude. Just imagine if each day you do one small, kind thing for yourself with tenderness and mindfulness over time. Not only will your body feel better, your heart will grow stronger, your mind more at peace, and your soul more radiant. Self-care isn't selfish. It's a silent form of spiritual practice. Because each gentle act of caring for yourself is a quiet reminder, there is still light within me, and I will tend to that light softly, lovingly, with my own two hands. 10. The freedom of no longer needing to please others. Have you lived most of your life trying to please everyone around you? I don't ask to make you feel sad, but to offer a moment of reflection. Because many in our generation, especially the elderly, spent decades living for others. For parents, for children, for spouses, for expectations. We did what was expected, what was proper, until one day we stop and ask, wait, who am I, really? What do I want? An elderly woman from Washington once told me with tears in her eyes, All my life, I tried to keep the peace. As a daughter-in-law, I feared offending my in-laws. As a mother, I didn't want to disappoint my kids. As a wife, I walked on eggshells. Now that I live alone, I ask myself for the first time, do I have the right to live in my own way? Have you ever felt that way? That you lost yourself in the effort to never upset anyone? The Buddha taught that a deep root of suffering is ego attachment, clinging to the image of who we are in other people's eyes. We begin to perform, to maintain appearances, rather than live truthfully. But here's the miracle. When you start living alone, when there's no one left to impress, something beautiful happens. You begin to live authentically. Imagine waking up each morning, no need to wear makeup, no need to cook a meal to someone else's taste, no need to say words that don't feel true. You just live. Gently, honestly, and freely. And the beauty is, when you no longer try to please, you don't lose love. You give love, but without needing approval. You offer kindness, but without needing applause. I call that the freedom of the seasoned heart. Freedom isn't abandoning everything. It's releasing what was never really you, so you can return simple, whole, and true. And perhaps one quiet morning you'll smile, not for anyone else, but because finally you've come home to yourself. And there's no one left to please, just you, and a deep, sacred peace. 11. Nature, a silent companion on the path. Sometimes, I ask the elderly Buddhists I meet, when you live alone, who's the companion that's always with you, yet you may have overlooked? They often look puzzled. And then I gently say, it's nature, the trees, the sky, the morning light, the wind whispering at night through your rooftop. When no one is around to talk to, have you ever found yourself pausing at the sound of birds in the morning, or gazing at the green leaves outside your window, feeling something inside you soften? I once spent 3 months meditating alone in the forest. No phone, no human voices. And yet, not once did I feel lonely. Each morning, the sunlight filtering through the leaves felt like an old friend visiting. The wind whispered stories into my ears. And when I sat still, I felt the earth embracing me quietly, but full of love. The Buddha himself sat beneath the Bodhi tree for 49 days to attain enlightenment. No one around, only nature, the breeze, the rain, the moon, the stars, the trees. And within that silent embrace, he awakened to a truth: everything is alive, breathing, and journeying with us. Imagine this. You step outside your home and simply sit. No need to think, no need to analyze, just listen. Eventually, you begin to sense you are never alone. You are held within a deep connection to all that surrounds you, what the ancients called the consciousness of the universe. I often tell elderly students of mine, when you feel there's no one left beside you, take a walk in your garden, sit under a tree, let your hand rest on its bark, or gently touch a flower. Because in that moment, you are being held by nature, the friend who never leaves you. And often, that friend understands you more than anyone else. You just need to be still, to listen, because nature has always been listening to you. 12. Facing death with calm and clarity. A 70-year-old student once came to me in a quiet conversation and asked, "Teacher, I live alone now, and each day I feel death drawing closer. I don't know if I'll have the courage to face it." Have you ever felt something like that? In the stillness of night, no one calling your name. And suddenly, the thought of death visits like an uninvited guest. But you know, in the eyes of Buddhist wisdom, death is not something to fear. It is simply a natural part of life. just as the sun rises and sets, just as a flower blooms and withers. The Buddha said, all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with awareness, which means death is not an end, but a continuation, a doorway for the journey of the mind to begin again. I once sat with an elderly woman in hospice care. She had lived alone for nearly 20 years. In her final moment, she didn't cry. She whispered, "I think I'm ready." I asked, "What does being ready mean to you?" She smiled and said, "I've lived enough. I've let go enough. I'm not afraid anymore." Imagine this. Each day, you spend just a few moments in meditation. Breathe in, breathe out, and softly remind yourself, this life is a temporary gift. Then, slowly, death is no longer a shadow that haunts, but a gentle friend, reminding you to live deeper, love fuller, and let go softer. Living alone offers a rare opportunity not to fear death, but to prepare for it with peace. Prepare by living each day fully, by forgiving others and yourself, by unburdening your heart from regrets, by accepting that nothing is truly lost. Because in truth, death doesn't take you away from life. It simply brings you home, to that vast stillness you've always belonged to. So if you're still breathing, if you're still hearing these words, then just live gently, sincerely. And one day, when it's time to leave, you'll do so calmly, peacefully, without fear. 13. Stillness isn't loneliness. It's a journey inward. Have you ever sat in a quiet room with no one around and suddenly felt a wave of emptiness wash over you? Many older Buddhists have asked me, "Teacher, is living alone the same as being lonely?" I usually respond with a gentle nod and say, it can be if you only see it with your outer eyes, but it can also be a doorway into something much deeper yourself. In Buddhism, stillness doesn't mean isolation. And loneliness, it's not really about the absence of others. It's about being disconnected from your own heart. I once spent several months in a small forest hut. No voices, no phones. But you know what? That's when I felt most accompanied. I was with every breath, with every sorrow I didn't avoid, with quiet joy that didn't need anyone to witness it. Can you imagine this? A day without alarms, without anyone calling you, without schedules. You just sit, breathe, and suddenly realize inside you is a vast sky. The Buddha once said, "Within you, there is an island. Return to it." And I believe the older we get, the more chances we have to return, no longer pulled by busy routines or trying to please everyone. Just you and the stillness that's been calling. One elderly woman told me after a morning meditation, I was sitting alone, but it felt like someone was hugging me from inside. I knew exactly what she meant. Because when the mind settles, we don't feel lack anymore. Everything love, understanding, light is already inside us. You see, some truths only appear when the noise fades. When the world quiets down, clarity begins to rise, gentle, clear, needing no explanation. And in that moment, you realize stillness isn't the absence of the world. It's the full presence of you. When you stop running, stop hiding, and simply sit just to be yourself. No one enters. No one leaves. Just you and the deepest journey of all. The journey home. 14. The legacy you leave is your inner light. Someone once asked me, "Teacher, I don't have anything to leave behind. No wealth, no title, nothing people would call success. So, what is my legacy?" Have you ever felt like that? As we grow older, We sometimes wonder, will I leave anything behind that truly matters? But here's the thing. The most powerful legacy a person can leave isn't a house, or money, or fame. It's the light within. It's the peace you bring just by walking into a room. It's the smile you offer when no one asks. It's the kind nod, the non-judging eyes, the calm presence that makes others feel safe near you. I remember an elderly man in New Mexico. He lived a very simple life. No wife, no children, no close friends. But every morning, he would go to the park and sweep away the fallen leaves. No one told him to. He just said, "I don't do anything grand, but if someone walks by and feels a bit lighter seeing a clean path, that's what I want to leave behind." Imagine this. People remember you not for what you taught, but because they felt peace just by being around you. That's a legacy more valuable than property. Your inner light. The Buddha didn't leave behind phones or libraries or grand institutions. He left a path, and every mindful step someone takes on that path becomes a lamp. You don't have to do something big to make a difference. Just live each day with a sincere heart. Forgive more. Listen more. Be real with yourself and let your peaceful presence flow through the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you breathe. I truly believe elders, after all they've lived through, carry a kind of light. It doesn't shout, it doesn't shine for show, but it warms the room, and it stays. And that light will remain long after your final breath. That is your final gift, and perhaps the most beautiful one you can leave behind in this world. 15. Facing emotions with compassion for yourself. Have you ever sat alone on a rainy afternoon and suddenly felt something stir inside you, a feeling you couldn't even name? Maybe it was a quiet sadness with no clear reason. Maybe it was loneliness or regret over something long past. And then you whispered to yourself, "Why am I still this soft-hearted?" Let me tell you something not from books, but from years of practice and walking alongside many older Buddhists. You're not wrong for feeling this way. You're simply doing what all humans must eventually learn: to face your emotions with compassion. An older woman once told me, her voice trembling, "I've gotten used to hiding my emotions. I didn't want anyone to see me weak. But now that I live alone, the sadness sometimes just overflows, and I feel like I'm drifting away." I looked at her gently and said, "You don't need to fight it. Just sit down, open your heart. Let the sadness be there. Watch it come and watch it go, like clouds passing through the sky." The Buddha taught, "Let whatever comes, come. Let whatever goes, go. But do not mistake yourself for any of it." That doesn't mean we ignore emotions. It means we look at them with kindness, like a loving mother looking at her child who's crying, angry, or afraid. Just imagine this. Next time sorrow shows up, instead of pushing it away, you simply place a hand over your heart, close your eyes, and say, "I'm feeling sad, and I accept that." That alone is enough to soothe the emotion, not by denying it, but by gently holding it. I've seen many elders begin to live more peacefully. Once they practice mindfulness and compassion toward themselves, they no longer blame themselves for being too emotional. They no longer feel ashamed for shedding tears in silence. They begin to understand, strength isn't the absence of emotion. It's the courage to sit with it gently. And if you're hearing these words during a tender moment in your life, then perhaps you've already started walking the path of healing, one step at a time, carried by the compassion you offer to yourself. 16. Reflecting on the past and letting go. There comes a time in life when the noise of the world fades, and you begin to hear your own heart more clearly. And in that quiet, old memories start to return. Have you ever sat in silence and suddenly recalled a painful moment from long ago? A person you may have hurt? A mistake you've never forgiven yourself for? I believe all of us, especially in the later chapters of life, carry some regrets. Some regret the things they never did. Some regret words they can't take back. Some keep reliving a moment that should have been released long ago. One elderly man, over 70, once told me he still dreams of his late father. In those dreams, he tries to say sorry for the years they clashed when he was young. Even though his father passed away nearly 2 decades ago, he still couldn't let go. I held his hand and said, "It's never too late to forgive, not others and not yourself. You don't have to forget, but you can look back with compassion." The Buddha said, "The past is no longer here. The future has not yet come. Dwell peacefully in the present." But sometimes, to live in the present, we must first walk through the memories we've locked away, not to judge them, but to understand them. To embrace the past is part of our journey, not to erase it, but to make peace with it. Imagine this. One day, you look at an old photograph. You see the face of someone who once hurt you, and you smile softly and whisper, "I've let it go." Or you look into the mirror and say to your own reflection, "I forgive you too." There are some gifts that only come when we let go, and peace is one of those gifts. You don't have to erase your memories. You just have to stop letting them steer your life. Because today you're still breathing. You still have a chance to live lighter, to live freer. And perhaps the legacy you leave behind isn't a flawless life, but the image of someone who stumbled and learned to rise again, with gentleness toward the past, with compassion for your journey. 17. Facing fear with mindfulness. There's one thing that's always present in life. Quiet, yet powerful. Fear. Fear of getting sick. Fear of growing old. Fear of being alone when you need someone the most. And above all, fear of the unknown death. Change. Those days when nothing feels in your control. Have you ever felt that? Sitting alone at night, and out of nowhere, a cold wave of fear rushes in, making your heart feel heavy? I've had many older Buddhas share with me, "Teacher, I'm not afraid of being alone. I'm just afraid that if something happens, no one will know. No one will be there." I understand. I'm human too. But here's what I've learned over 40 years of practice in meditation. Fear doesn't come from our situation. It comes from a mind that isn't grounded. The Buddha taught, a restless mind is the root of unease. But when the mind is anchored in the present, even walking through darkness, you can walk steadily. Just imagine this. One morning, you wake up, and instead of letting your mind run off into what-ifs, you just sit still. Feel the breath going in and out. You realize you're alive. You realize you're breathing. And in that very moment, nothing is wrong. Mindfulness doesn't erase the things you fear. It just helps you stand still in the middle of the storm and see, I'm still here. I'm still standing. I once taught a man to practice mindful breathing every morning. He used to worry a lot about illness. But after a month, he called me and said, "Teacher, the illness is still there, but I'm no longer being dragged by it. I breathe and I know I'm living each moment with awareness." That's the power of mindfulness. Not to make life easier, but to make our minds strong enough to walk through life, even when life keeps changing. So if today you're facing something that scares you, pause, breathe in, breathe out, and gently tell yourself, "I am here, right now, right here," and that is enough. Because sometimes you don't have to run from fear, You just have to walk through it with a mind that's steady in the present moment. 18. Silence is the language of the soul. Have you ever sat in a completely quiet room? No voices, no music, no phone buzzing, just you and your breath? And instead of feeling peaceful, you suddenly felt strange? Maybe even a little empty? Many older folks have shared with me, "Teacher, now that I live alone, the house is so quiet, but sometimes it feels scary, like the silence is swallowing me." I understand that feeling. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that silence equals loneliness. But you know what? In Buddhist teaching, silence is not a void. It's a sacred space where the soul finally gets to speak. There's a quote I truly love. "Silence is the language of the soul. Everything else is just a poor translation." The Buddha taught that when our mind is still like a calm lake, truth can finally reflect clearly. And in that silence, you don't need to explain, defend, or prove anything. You just feel whole. Picture this. Each morning, you don't rush to turn on the television. You don't check the news or call anyone. You just sit, close your eyes, and let silence be your companion. Then, something begins to stir, not from outside, but from deep within. A quiet peace, a silent strength, the voice of your soul, the one that's been waiting to be heard. One Buddhist once told me, "Teacher, I've come to realize the most important things in life don't always need to be said. They just need to be fully lived." Silence isn't about cutting yourself off from the world. It's about reconnecting to it through presence, not words. And you know what? As we grow older, we gain a special privilege to step into that silence, not as someone left behind, but as someone who's found their way home. In silence, you lose nothing. You simply return to the truest part of yourself, the part that never needed noise to be heard. 19. Stop searching out there. Start coming home to yourself. There's a question I often hear from older Buddhists. "Teacher, I've been searching for peace for so many years, but why do I still feel like something's missing?" I usually pause, smile, and gently say, "Maybe you've been searching in the wrong direction, because peace isn't found in the places we go. It's not in someone else, and it's definitely not in some ideal situation we imagine in the future. True peace is always inside you. You may have just forgotten it for a long time." I once led a meditation retreat for people over 60. One woman who had lived alone for nearly 15 years shared this with me. "I kept trying to fill the emptiness, cleaning the house, reading all kinds of books, taking art classes, even signing up for online courses for seniors. But during one quiet meditation session, she suddenly began to cry. 'Teacher,' she said, 'for the first time in my life, I sat still and didn't feel empty. I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting, and I felt enough.' Have you ever felt that way? That after all the searching, what you truly needed was simply to come home to yourself? The Buddha taught, within each of us, there is an island. Return to that island. Take refuge there. That inner island is your breath, your awareness, the simple presence that isn't trapped in the past or worried about the future. You don't need to go far. You don't need approval. You just need to be willing to sit with yourself. Imagine this. Each day, you take 10 minutes to do nothing. Just sit. Close your eyes. Breathe. No goal to reach. No pain to run from. And slowly, you'll begin to feel a quiet space, like an old friend who's been waiting for you all along. And when you finally touch that stillness, you'll realize there's nowhere to go, nothing to achieve. Everything you need has been within you this whole time. You just have to come back home and sit in the silence that your heart has long forgotten. 20. Freedom from material attachments and titles. Someone once asked me, "Teacher, now that I'm older, everything feels less important, but I also feel lost. I don't have goals anymore. I feel empty." I smiled and replied, "Are you really empty? Or are you just finally experiencing spaciousness for the first time?" You see, we spend most of our lives chasing things outside of us. Money, reputation, status, recognition. We're so used to striving for something that when we stop, we feel like we've lost purpose. But the truth is, the moment we let go of those burdens, a new kind of freedom appears, inner freedom. The Buddha left behind his palace, not because he hated wealth or comfort, but because he saw clearly, the more we cling, the more we suffer. The more we release, the lighter the heart becomes. I remember a man in his 70s who once led a big company in New York. After retirement, he told me, "No one calls me boss anymore. No one asks for my opinion." He felt invisible. But after a few meditation sessions, he said to me, "For the first time in decades, I don't have to impress anyone. I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to play a role. I'm just free." Imagine this. You wake up early. No rush, no deadlines. You make yourself a cup of tea. You sit quietly as the morning sun touches your balcony. No one sees you. No one praises you. But deep in your heart, you know you are truly living. The Buddha said, "The one who knows contentment is the richest of all." Letting go of material burdens doesn't make you poorer. It simply removes what was weighing you down, so you can return to the peace that was always yours. And sometimes, the most precious kind of freedom doesn't come from gaining more, but from having the courage to release what no longer serves you. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of old roles. Letting go of the image you once worked so hard to maintain. Then you realize you're not missing anything. All you ever needed was to be yourself. Gently, fully. Thank you for walking with me all the way to this moment. We've reflected on the kind of freedom that doesn't come with noise or applause, but with silence, space, and a lighter heart. As we grow older, we start to see things differently. The worries that once kept us up at night now feel so small. And the simplest things, a quiet morning, a warm cup of tea, a day when we don't have to prove anything, suddenly feel priceless. Real freedom isn't about how much you hold in your hands. It's about what no longer holds your heart captive. Just as the Buddha said, there's no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. When you stop chasing titles and expectations and simply walk your own path with peace, that's when you know you're already free. Dear friend, if today's message touched something inside your heart, if it helped you breathe deeper, slow down, or let go of a burden you didn't need to carry, then I believe our time together today has been meaningful. If you'd like to keep walking this path of insight and peace with me, please subscribe to the channel, Buddhism Seeds. Feel free to like this video, share it with someone you care about, and leave a comment below. I read every one, and I treasure your words. See you again in the next video, where we'll keep discovering little seeds of mindfulness, blooming quietly in the everyday moments of life.